and welcome to Conversations for Change. I am Anesha, the editor of the AI Executive Council, the community initiative of TheMathCompany, and we have something very special planned for you today. So I hope you are all here and ready for a scintillating conversation going ahead. We're going to start off with just a few announcements and then kick off the roundtable for the day. Before we start today's event, there's a very proud moment for TheMathCompany. We have been recognized among the top 20 companies in diversity by Jobs for Her for promoting diversity, equity, and inclusion. It is a moment of pride for all of us to be recognized for this because this is an award that actually highlights outstanding efforts made by companies in India to enhance female participation and performance in the workplace. Super proud for this. Now, as you all know, and some of you who are new to AIXE, you have questions about what AIXE is, what is the AI Executive Council, and what is it that we've been doing for almost a year now since launch. So here's a short video for that. Thank you so much. With that, we move on to the house rules for the day. So we have just a few things we would appreciate if all participants in the event would just follow this. We would appreciate if you turn your videos on. It always encourages all the speakers. Please share about the important discussions on social. You can tag TheMathCompany and use the hashtags AIXE, TheMathCompany, and the hashtag EmbraceEquity. More on this bit later. There is a special surprise at the end, but you'll just have to stay tuned for that. We move on to the agenda of the event today. We have a short opening address, followed by the roundtable discussion. We have the surprise, as I said, which is a snapshot. So all of you be ready for coming up on video towards the end of the event. And we have a closing address. So let's get started with our opening address. The opening address today is being delivered by Shayande Banerjee, CEO and co-founder of TheMathCompany. Shayande Banerjee has been a part of the analytics industry for over 25 plus years. And in this illustrious career, he has spearheaded pivotal analytics transformations for organizations. He is also a Forbes Council member. He is a passionate advocate for holistic employee growth and wellness and facilitates people-centric initiatives as well as a culture of learning in Macro. Let's hear from Shayande.
As we have gathered here to celebrate Women's Day, I'm pleased to announce the partnership between MathCo and Women in Data. We in MathCo believe in and support inclusion, equity, diversity in everything that we do. And in that direction, I strongly believe that this partnership is going to go a long way to make this a much more diverse workplace, a much more inclusive workplace, and a very resilient workplace for people from all different backgrounds. So as we are encouraging our women colleagues to create a fantastic career path, Women in Data will be a kind of a great partnership to have. And I believe with all the data enthusiasts in MathCo and with people from diverse background all across India, US, Europe, the diverse team that we have created, it will be a great addition to Women in Data as well. So look forward to this conversation for change.
We officially start off the event and welcome to all members from the Math Company, from AIXE and Women in Data who are joining us today. The event will be taken forward by my colleague, Yashaswi, who is a content marketer, a poet, and a coffee lover, not necessarily in that order. She is managing the community of AIXE and she's here to take you through the event. Over to you, Yashaswi.
Thank you so much, Anisha. That was a lovely introduction. Hello, everybody. This is Yashaswi, and I'm super pleased to have you all here. Welcome to Conversations for Change. So we are looking forward to some very interesting interactions. So just a quick heads up, as Anisha already mentioned, that we have a snapshot coming up at the end of the roundtable where we'll ask all of you to turn your videos. So just a quick heads up with that. So without any delay, I would love to welcome all our speakers for today. Today we have Telina Reil, Praveena R, Ling Zhang, Claus Rose, Gustavo Mendonca, Sundararaman, Nicole Crosby, Liz Taylor, Sahana Sreeja, Anjali Iyer, and Neethu Vincent. Welcome all of you. It's time to welcome the moderator for today. That's Sadie St. Lawrence, founder and CEO of Women in Data, an international nonprofit organization with representation in 50 plus countries and a community of 40,000 plus data enthusiasts. She's awarded the top 30 most inspiring women in AI, top 10 most admired businesswomen to watch in 2021, top 21 influencer in data. She is a recipient of the Outstanding Service Award from UC Davis and also hosts the Data Bites podcast for Women in Data. With this, hi Sadie.
Good morning from my end. Good evening to everyone else. Happy to be here today. Thank you for the warm introduction. Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here as we kick off the partnership with the Math Company and Women in Data. And first of all, I want to say a big congratulations to the Math Company for top 20 companies for jobs for her. That is an incredible accomplishment. And I'm so excited to begin this partnership with an organization that is already leading the way. And one of the things that really resonated with me with the Math Company is their value of putting people at the heart of everything that they do and humanizing the solutions. Being someone who works in technology, as many of us do, we know that we love digits and numbers, particularly with data. But behind all of that data is a human element. And I think it's so essential to make sure that we are valuing the human element in that. And this is something the Math Company values and does very well. So thank you for that. And I'm excited to start this partnership with this amazing conversation that we're having today, Conversations for Change during a timely matter of Women's Day. So before we get started and we bring up their amazing panelists, I just want to take everyone through a few quick numbers because we are women in data and share what is the state of diversity today in the space and why is it good for organizations. So if you can head to the next slide. The numbers for what happens when you support women and girls is very compelling. So across the board, when we have more girls attend school, we see a 3% increase in GDP. Additionally, organizations see a 10% increase in crop yields from female owners and a 35% higher investment returns from women-led teams. I think what resonates most with me, though, is that the World Economic Forum has estimated that when we close the gender gap, we can expect to see a 35% GDP increase. So overall, supporting women and girls is not just good for women and girls, but is good for society. Next slide, please. However, we have some progress to make. So today, it would take about 145 years to attain gender parity in politics. Additionally, it will take 268 years to close the economic and participation gap. So I don't know about you, I calculated what would it be? Would it be my great-grandchild, my great-great-grandchild? And for 268 years, it would roughly be my great-great-great-grandchild that would see gender gap closed. So this is something that I'm very passionate about. I'm a little bit of an impatient person, and this is something that I want to see change a lot faster. So overall, we still have much progress to make. Next slide, please. And today, as we start to have these conversations of how we move forward to close the gender gap, I just want to highlight a few barriers that women and girls are facing today to make sure that we're focusing on the right areas that need solved. So today, one of the main problems is the unpaid care work that women do. So depending on the location that women are living in, women can do anywhere from 2 to 10x the unpaid care work compared to men. When you're trying to get promoted, when you're trying to move forward in your life, if you have a weight on that is 2x to 10x more than others, it can really slow you down. Additionally, in the workplace, women tend to spend a median of 200 hours or more on non-promotable tasks to men. This kind of correlates with some of the unpaid care work. And so if you're a leader, it's essential that you're taking the time to look at what are some of those unpromotable tasks and make sure that they're equally distributed across your team. Additionally, we saw a huge impact on women's careers from the COVID-19 crisis. And women's careers were 1.8 times more vulnerable than men's careers. So now it's really essential that as we're coming out of COVID-19, that we make sure we're taking the time to add that extra support. Additionally, I want to highlight it's not just a matter of getting women and girls into the right careers and exposing those career paths, but making sure that they're having access to equal pay. Today, women earn about 82 cents for every dollar earned by a man. And so we still have lots of progress to make in terms of making sure that we have gender equity across the board. So as we get started for our Conversations for Change, I just want to highlight a little bit of where we're at. And I'm really excited to welcome our amazing panelists so that they can provide us with additional insight for how we start to drive forward gender equity across the globe. So it looks like we have all of our panelists up. So I'd actually like to just get us started here today. And I would like to start our first question off with Telina. Telina, I'm just curious, how have you started to see the tech landscape and roles evolve since you started in your career?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think tech has changed significantly in the last 20 years or throughout my career. That's been a few amazing years now. And I'd see that I lead an advanced analytics team for Abbott, so that's a global healthcare company. So if I would comment on a few aspects, I think I would comment on the tech, but also on pharma and businesses in general. And I think in terms of tech, I don't think we're at hardcore tech any longer. What you see with digital and the digital space at the moment, caters for so many roles building bridges between business and technology. And that also gives so much more diverse backgrounds and profiles a chance and a very important role in the space. And I think this is something that really is inspiring and drives the quality and the creativity of solutions. And I think in terms of, if I were comment on pharma, coming from an Abbott perspective, I think what data technology has enabled is a very strong decentralization of healthcare, which means that patients or people like you and me, we have a much more chance to proactively control and manage our own health, which is also a very, very a great value, I think, for society. Look at companies, I think we see a much broader and much more integrated use of data and technology now than 20 years ago. And with that, I mean, of course, we need data. It's a necessity now to inform business decisions and also direct the market and customer requirements. We all know that. But I think in terms of the broader application, I might just give an example from, I'm working in the branded generics part of Abbott. And our mission is to ensure accessibility and availability of high quality medicines to people around the globe. And we have millions of people taking our medicines every day. And if you look how data and advanced analytics can help the whole value chain, and modern data technology, if I make it even broader, from increasing throughput of production lines to having forecast solutions to know what to have where and where to deliver. I think this is in all these different aspects, the broad application and the diversity. And this is why, to me, what I think has made this field, digital and technologies, even more exciting over the last 20 years. And I would encourage any woman to be part of it. And I think my last point would perhaps be that I also see a big difference in terms of how women are supported, also within industries and communities like this. Because I think there are 2 points that are important, especially for women. One's to be engaging and being introduced to this just like a really fascinating area very early to make this a viable career. And secondly, the importance of communities, really, to build confidence and stay confident throughout your career. Because I do think, to your point from earlier on, that it's fair to say that women do face more conflicts between private and professional obligations, and perhaps also subconscious core values hindering us too to find the best solutions for ourselves. And I think that's where communities really help to connect, to show that you're not alone, and to open up creativity and find good solutions, because there are solutions, but just to find them and support each other.
Yes, I couldn't agree with you more on the community aspect of it. Women in data, we like to say community equals courage. And, I also really resonate with your point about how you need that community for different points in your career, right? It's not just a matter of getting into your first role in a technology career, but all the changes that go through when you're moving into leadership positions and changing roles. So appreciate your thoughts and highlights on that. And that's a good setup. I'd like to ask Neethu a question, because you highlighted it really well of just this exciting tech landscape that we're living in today, and there's lots of opportunity for innovation. But I'm curious, Neethu, what are some of the challenges that you see women face when pursuing careers in technology, and how can we start to address some of these challenges?
Sure. Thanks, AJ, and great question. I think some of the things that you already highlighted in your initial presentation, right? But just to add on, I think one of the big things that I have felt personally is there is a complete shortage of female role models, right? Like there are very few leadership positions today that are held by women. And while this experience of being, a woman leader or a minority group leader, if you will, can be very alienating for the individual itself. But there's also the aspect of creating a very monolithic identity of what it means to be a woman leader, and overlook the diversity that exists within that group itself that is created. And I think that when you look at it through the lens of say how many within the women leaders, how many women of color are there? Or when you think about intersectionality, how many women who have who identify differently for whatever identity they go for, right? Now this could act this identity, this monolithic identity that we're creating, can be very exclusionary in itself, right? And when younger women look at or evaluate careers in tech, and this could it could give a message out to them that if you fall into this particular category, then you can be successful, else maybe you don't have a place here, which is a very risky thing to do, because we're not all the same. That's one thing that comes to mind. The other thing I feel is the way we define meritocracy itself. I think Telina touched upon this a little bit. There is so much subliminal messaging that we grow up with, and as women, how do we conduct ourselves? What works for us, which is in stark contrast with what is required to climb the corporate ladder, right? And so one example that comes to mind is the assertiveness versus likability, right? Like if you're assertive, you're not likable, and if you aren't likable, then you can't be assertive, and then you don't get things done. And this can be backed by data as well. There is so much promotions for women that are overlooked, not because of any lack of skills when it comes to technology. But when it comes to the software aspect of things, they're often given feedback that you need to behave a certain way, you need to be a certain way. I think there is a real need for us to think about meritocracy a little bit differently. That's the other thing that comes to mind, over and above the gender bias that exists, or the lack of pay parity that exists, or the risk of women losing jobs for post the pandemic, like you highlighted, right? So when I think about how do we ensure that we, solve for this, I think the most important thing is to have intentionality and urgency, I think, right? I think leaders need to understand that there is value, there is, it's desirable and it's profitable to have diversity, right? Because even if you don't believe any of the data, I mean, it's a very simple thing, right? The solutions that we are creating are, consumed by a diverse set of people. So if your leadership and your team does not represent the interest of the groups that are out there that we're creating solutions for, you're probably losing the plot somewhere, right? And you run the risk of not being competitive, right? So I think that's one thing to like, and often whenever we start any D&I programs, this is what we hear, that we need to get leadership buy-in. We need them to understand, spend time understanding why this is important, why this can be a game changer for you. Apart from this, I feel like we need to articulate and create space for different styles of leadership. This would benefit everyone, right? Say for example, a common misconception is that you need to be assertive to be a leader, where you could be someone who is driving change through persuasion, right? So is there space in your organization that you've created for that kind of leadership? Is something that we need to ask ourselves. And of course, I think we need to ask ourselves the tough questions as well. I mean, there is bias trainings and policies and processes can take us to a certain place, but I think we need to look back and see, are these working? Do we need to do something more, something different? And if we do something like that, what is that different thing that we can do? And these solutions have to be curated for the space in which your organization sits, and not necessarily like a template that you can just pick and put anywhere, right? Because the context of every organization, the people that constitute every organization is different. So yeah, these are some of the things that come to mind, Sadie.
Yeah, I really like your point of asking yourself what's working or what isn't working, right? And given that, we all love, I think, data in this group, it's important to remember we can apply our techniques for analysis and experimentation and testing to even solve problems like closing the gender gap. And that's not something that we don't have to apply our analytic skills just to business problems, but we should be asking ourselves continually, are the methods we're putting in place working, and how are we starting to move the needle? And I really appreciate your point of we need to have that sense of urgency right now. So thank you for that. Additionally, you mentioned how important it is to have female role models and leaders. And I'd actually like to ask Claus a question in terms of how leaders can support their teams to make them more diverse and inclusive. First I have to say thank you, Claus, for being here and being an ally. We appreciate the male representation in this group because it really does take all of us coming together to support one another. So yeah, would love to get some of your thoughts on how leaders can support their teams to make them more diverse and inclusive, and what are some ways you're currently supporting your team?
Thanks, Sadie. Happy to be here. So I think the first question you should ask yourself, don't be afraid of the unknown. I think that's the biggest problem that leaders are faced with. We all often tend to go down a path where we choose what we feel comfortable with. My approach has been very different. I always choose what is less comfortable. And I've done that in I would say the latter of the last 5 years of my career. I've deliberately now hired people that don't have the expected background that you would normally see, and then just look for specific elements on how they can help create a bigger team and a better team. And I know we're in a forum where we talk about some of the things that we do, but I think one of the jobs that we've actually done together with TheMathCompany is a good example of that. So we've come up with something that nobody else had. Why? Because you're just very persistent. We had people with a crazy idea that came to life. And that's how greatness come around. That's the beauty of the human being. They always find smart ways to get to the next level, even though it's troublesome. And this is where the human, in any case, would always be the machine or an AI. So that's something that an AI can never do, but humans can. And that is a reflection that leaders should take in. They need that revelation of good ideas to kind of help get the support from people, machines that are in many ways cleverer than we are. So that's a very practical example of something not too distant and not too far from some of the people on the call.
Wonderful. Yeah, I love that your example of providing innovation, right, to this problem. Could you tell us a little bit more about the project you did with the TheMathCompany and some of the ways that you're innovating around diversity in this space?
Yeah, so I took people, so I work in the environment, health and safety space. So I took people, both male and female, so there is we don't do gender differences, but we actually look for people that have certain skill sets. And the people that were part of that project had certain skill sets that I was specifically looking for because I needed to get challenged. And then I also had the ability to go back and challenge. So we created a machine learning AI model that can actually validate all of our EHS data and give us a very clear outlook in real time of where we need to focus. So the offset of that, amongst others, have actually been quite astonishing. So we've taken out on our severe injuries and fatalities, we've taken out about 90% of those compared to the year before, about 42% of our recordable injuries. I'm not saying that that is the only reason why, but it is by far one of the aspects of it. And that is, if you look at the people that are on that project, I just gave them a challenge. Say, guys, you're getting into a team where you have zero background, you have no knowledge, so you need to create that. So I gave them that challenge that you need to get a certification in the EHS space. And more importantly, you need to be able to go where our frontline workers are. That means you need to go training, working at high confined spaces. So they were really being challenged on their own ego to then go and then do this. And the interesting part is they were really thrilled about that approach, and they have all said yes. And by the way, they actually turned out to become some of the best people that we have in that space, even though they've had less years of experience than some of the other members that I have on the team. So I have a couple of very bright people that have been brought up in that space that are now exceeding some of their colleagues by a long shot. So I hope that answered your question, Sadie.
Yes, thank you. That's incredible. Again, that was a perfect setup to how we could use our own skills of machine learning and analytics to attack and provide solutions for some of these problems. So I'd like to hand it over to Anjali and ask a little bit more about how, once we have people in the pipeline, it's great, right? And we know what we can do. I think you talked a little bit about helping women get into leadership careers, but how do we even get individuals interested to pursue these careers in technology? So I don't know if we have Anjali here or not, but I'm curious to know a little bit more about what are some of the steps we can take to encourage women to pursue careers in technology.
Sure. Am I audible?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay. So we can encourage women to pursue career in tech by providing multiple means for them to upskill in STEM jobs, so that they're capable of handling the STEM jobs, creating support networks, providing education, as gender gaps, I believe, begins in school days, right? And I can't stress enough the value of mentorship. Finding a mentor early from the start of the school days can actually do wonders for building confidence and translating into career satisfaction, right? And I don't know how many of you know, there's a famous quote from children's rights activist Maria Cecilia, right? You can't be what you can't see, right? So young girls who are interested in tech careers are in desperate need of role models who look like them, right? If I have to talk from my personal example, when I see my daughter's school storybooks, the stories actually revolve around, mom being an awesome cook and dad taking care of the house, and dad taking the kids out for the picnic, right? So such examples, plus I don't know, there is a very important, this is a very famous thing. When children were asked to draw a scientist, most of them actually drew a white man in a lab coat. That's what they see on TV, in movies, online, and often in real life. But there are great examples of women in tech that we don't even hear about, right? So the point here is that it's important that young women hear these stories and learn about how other women like them were able to make the difference. Right? And to answer your question around what steps the companies can take to attract and retain the female talent, multiple ways again. Offering women the opportunity to progress and succeed in the senior roles is one of the most important ways of attracting women into tech. Right? Knowing that a tech company has female management team could give in the new leaders or the new women who want to join the industry the confidence that they need to apply for the role, and they may give them prospects. Right? Promoting women to senior roles will also encourage the new staff and future candidates to apply, as this will give them confidence for them in their new employer as well. Future women leaders are also good role models for young women and are a benefit to a company, as it increases a small number of influential women in tech. And this will not only help with encouraging women in tech, but to also follow their steps, but also by retaining the current employers. Right? This is a great example here about the next point I'm going to talk about. The conversations centered around gender equality must include men, right? Only by involving all genders in such discussions, we can ensure they are comprehensive, thoughtful, fruitful by involving all genders in such talks. One more personal example, I'm actually coming from the time where I joined my work right exactly after 3 months of my maternity break, right? With a very strict work schedule of 9 a.m. to 6 a.m. And it wasn't an easy journey for me to leave my little one at home and go to office 5 days a week. But one thing which I want to highlight over here is that something that really kept me moving was my ambition, desire to bringing that change, and my unshakable optimism. And most importantly, be a role model for my little one, right? I also want to highlight about the TheMathCompany. This is the first company in my career in last 12-13 years which has given me the remote working opportunity, right? Despite coming out of the pandemic era, right? Few simple small steps which Matco has taken, apart from providing more remote working opportunities, our flexible work schedules, a lot of women-centric policies, simple things like modifying policies like introducing period leaves, increasing paternity leave, as men also play equal role as that of a woman in bringing up a child. Right? But having said that, I see a huge change in evolution now since the time I have joined when I started my career. Those who decided to become a mother in their early 30s, are still, they have that option and they are thriving a corporate career, and they have been welcomed lately with the return to work programs, from bringing in new perspectives at work, coming in fresh from sabbatical.
Thank you for that. Yeah, I want to highlight one of your points early on in terms of having representation for young minds to see women in tech careers. And I recently read a post from The Guardian where they analyzed women in AI in movies and found that there was only a 13% representation of women in those roles. And I love your data points on how important that is, because when we ask children, what does a scientist look like? What comes to mind is what they see out in the world. And so just how to highlight, if we want to get more women into these technical roles, it's important to make sure that we're having representation, not just on LinkedIn, but also within the media that exists today. So appreciate your thoughts on that.
Thank you.
I want to switch over a little bit and talk with Ling, the VP of Data Science at Cadet. I know, Ling, you and I have been working on some things in terms of leadership training for women, and you've had a really robust career. So I wondered if you could highlight what have been some of those milestones in your career, and do you have any lessons from that you would like to share with any women in the audience to have a career in tech?
Sure, I'm happy to do that. So basically, if I reflect my career, from very big level, really have two steps, actually two milestones. First thing is I started with a software engineer. Then after 10 years, around 2012, I become a data scientist. That's a really big shift. And the second milestone is really from an individual contributor, become a manager and leader. So how did I do that? I think you guys already talk about the mentoring community, especially your company, Women, Your Data. This is a really great community. Definitely community is a part. I think I involved the community in my career earlier is really Toastmaster. And later on, I went to some meetup, especially technology related to big data. So, but I want to focus today is really for several personal side also, except outside community support mentoring. So for a person, especially as a woman, you need to have a right mindset. That's super important. When I started my first job as a software engineer, actually, I was in a research design group. That means I have to think ahead about the future product, service, technology. I have to get new ideas, write proposals. And during these 10 years I worked in there, I really developed a right mindset. Always look ahead, and both internally, externally, ask what is the next in technology, what is the next for the product service. So I constantly reading the most of the recent papers, new books, attend conference. So I remember I suggest several new books to the company library. One of them such as Competing on Analytics by Davenport. It's back 2004, maybe. Later on, he wrote Analytics at Work, Smart Decision and Better Result. So this is very important, this mindset, have a right habit. I think the second thing is basically continued learning. Around 2012, I see a strong movement about open source, like big data, Hadoop platform, revolution are outside the company. And similar like current OpenAI, ChatGPT, then I started to think about, should I make a change? I don't see my company at that time have an immediate adoption. They have their own big data platform called HPPC. I worked on the platform, even implemented some machine learning algorithm. But when I compare Hadoop, it's not compatible. So that, and also the job title, data science, become very, very hot. And I'm thinking, okay, I should be a data scientist. I started writing articles, blogging about that, also blogging big data. Then with this, I just, I searched for a new opportunity being a data scientist. I jumped in a startup, really using Hadoop Revolution R on social media money, do the sentiment analysis. That's back 2012. Pretty cool, actually. So I think this is really try to make a second part, continued learning is very important. And also remember, you have to dare take a risk to make change. I really like one quote said by Jim Rohn, success is something you attract by the person you become. You have to keep upskilling yourself because the world changes so fast. And the only constant is change. You have to catch up. So later on is also another thing I want to mindset shift, because when I become from an individual contributor, become a manager, how this happened? When I work on during this process, I'm thinking, okay, when one day I found a quote really by Albert Einstein. is that try not to become a main success, but rather try to become a man of value. I think, oh, it's so inspirational. I want to think about how can I contribute more, add more value to others and to a company. I found the answer, okay, I should be a leader. So that's I started to reading books related to management and leadership, even go to communities such as I mentioned the Toastmaster to train my leadership. Then I started looking for the manager related job opportunities. So that's I made that leap. So I do think this is the mindset, very, very powerful. That's the reason in 2016, I do wrote the book, Grow to Your Fullest, really help people to live out their best, their full potential. So that's all I want to share. Believe in yourself, and also meanwhile, try to gain support from community. Also try to think about how do you help others to become successful in your career, not only in your career, also in life. Thanks.
Thank you for that. I can't stress the importance of that continual learning mindset, and I really appreciate the quotes you shared, particularly in roles such as technology, where the technology is always changing and new trends are emerging. I'd like to go over to Sahana, Associate Principal of Solution at TheMathCompany, because I'm curious, can you give us a little bit of a highlight of, Ling did such a great job of getting us excited about continual learning. What are some of the emerging trends and technologies that we should be thinking about that are likely going to shape future careers in tech?
Yeah, for sure. Sadie, thanks for having me and giving me this opportunity. I think we talked a lot about big data, AI, ML, all of those terms, right? And it's definitely exciting, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. That's going to continue to be a focal point in the coming years. But I think we also live in the era of ChatGPT, the GitHub, code help, and so many other technologies that have basically made coding and all of these information more and more accessible. So if you ask me what skills are going to matter more now, I think more than ever, some of the core skills related to being able to interpret data and learn and identify patterns and form stories from it, really the art of storytelling, and being able to translate all of those learnings into business practices and business decisions is what is going to matter all the more, right? Today, I think building models is easy. I know a lot of you are going to come chase me after this, but yeah, building models has become truly easy, but building frameworks that effectively help us identify these inherent data biases is what's going to be tricky and is what should be the focus in the coming years, right? For example, I was reading about sort of how a couple of years ago, there was an algorithm built by a tech company that sort of helps you screen resumes. And it was canceled immediately later because it automatically learned to not sort of shortlist any women candidates, mainly because it was learning from historical data and it already had bias in it, right? So it becomes very important to be able to identify these trends early on and ensure that your model is not learning from these biased data already, and sort of making sure that you're not just using the models and the codes out there, but also knowing what works where, what are the drawbacks, how do you tune it. All of that is going to become more and more important, right? So I think to encourage this, I look back at what sort of got me in here, right? And I think about how growing up, I was always recognized for being outspoken, and that often got me into a lot of trouble, I think. But only when I started working did I realize that this was a true asset and a strength in so many ways, right? So I think a culture that encourages these soft skills and these trends is what really makes you shine. So it's important to have a culture that recognizes and encourages these type of softer skills, if you will, right? So that's the first thing. Second thing is, I think we talked about mentorship a lot, and I think another bit to add to that is also normalizing asking for help across all genders, right? Really, to sort of make sure we reach out across the board, talk about where we need help, and make that easy. Because I think in COVID times, it's become very easy to kind of burn out because you're also working from home, so the lines of work and home is sort of blurry. So it's important to ask for help when you need it, and also reach out to help each other out, really. Right? And the other bit was also how much, I was thinking about how much we need to set up a culture that encourage women to take more risk, right? I am a data analyst, I'm a production engineer turned data analyst turned solutioning expert today, where I lead that practice. And if 4 years ago, if you'd asked me, that's the role that I saw for myself, absolutely not. I think I saw myself playing, maybe going on to become an engagement manager, a delivery manager, something what I'm used to and accustomed to doing, as opposed to doing something entirely different, but I have daily targets and a very stressful environment, but very dynamic and exciting all the same, right? So I think that's another theme that I think a lot of people have talked about in terms of making sure we're encouraging women to take risks. So those are, I think, the three things that we need to sort of hone and encourage.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. Yes, I couldn't agree more of the importance of storytelling. And I'm sure that you have a few people looking you up right now and want to have some further conversation about how building a model is easy. So definitely reach out to Sahana if you have more questions about that as well. We've talked a lot about technology just in general, but it does differentiate when we look at it by different sectors. And so we're lucky to have Jai, Vice President of Business Transformation of IPG, here today. And you work in the manufacturing sector. Can you provide us a little bit of a highlight on what the current scenario for women in tech leadership is like in the manufacturing sector? And how do we start to encourage and retain more women in this space in particular?
Fantastic. Thanks for the opportunity and the question, Sadie. I was just checking my chat GPT to see what kind of response it was going to get. We're talking AI, ML. So here's some stats, because I'll give you some direct inferences, but here are some interesting response from chat GPT. It says, okay, 27% of manufacturing jobs held by women, and only 16% of them are executives. Just to give you a flavor for where things are. I think the other numbers are like 47% of women employed in the industry, of which only 30% is in the manufacturing. I think this is that stat. In fact, I was also checking the other question. Hey, give me some inferences, examples of women leadership in tech leadership and manufacturing. It gave me all the past ones. Mary Barra, the past CEO, Denise Morrison, former CEO of Campbell. It's actually not that bad. Let me share some changes in manufacturing. I think what I'm finding is, I'm also a board member in the Manufacturing Leadership Council in the US. We have more women represented on the board now than it has in the past. And when I go for these competitions and the awards, more women, especially in the digital transformation and leading tech, in the manufacturing space, are emerging than what I've seen in the past 20 years. So you have your typical lean manufacturing, Six Sigma, operational excellence, and then you have digital. So I see more women taking leadership roles in the technical side in the manufacturing. And things have not, I would say, have changed significantly. It's not as dangerous as it used to be. Things are becoming sophisticated in manufacturing, so that enables women to make an impact. And the other part, what I do see is on my own team, so I have this incredible lady, so she leads the MES deployment. So the ability to understand data and lead with empathy to connect with a cross-section of people within the organization, they excel in it. So I see more and more opportunity. I'll just share one or two more inferences. Even on the board, if I were to look at the future, there's going to be more automation coming down the pipeline. One is it's needed. You need to eliminate areas where labor is used, it's not safe or dangerous or repetitive. So the person at MIT leading this is Dr. Julie Shah. So your ability to understand how to use data automation to work, but lead with the empathy on how do you interact with humans. So to me, it's like it's a great time to be for women in tech leadership in the manufacturing of the space. And I see a lot more younger people taking on the mantle and making a bigger impact.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts on that. I know we have about 5 or so more minutes. So I'd like to actually bring up 2 of our panelists, Gustavo, Global Head of RGM Digital Solutions at the Kraft Heinz Company, and Praveena, Senior Director of Data Engineering and Analytics at Dollar General. Both of you, I'm curious to know a little bit more, how can we enable more pathways into leadership roles? And Gustavo, I'd love to start with you and get some of your thoughts on how we can enable leadership for women in the CPG sector in particular.
Thanks a lot for having me. Delighted to be part of this panel, and it's actually a very subject that is very close to my heart. I've had the pleasure actually to work in my first challenge at Kraft Heinz to redesign and restructure the compensation and benefits team in EMEA, and so had the opportunity to learn a lot about gender pay gap, and I think you can share some of the things that we've done. And I think the framework that we developed back there, it's based on 3 pillars, which I call LOL. It's not funny, but it's just easier for me to remember. The first L, leadership. I think we all need a very important leadership push in this space, right? So if leaders don't constantly advocate for the initiatives to break this glass ceiling and participate in all the initiatives that are created by business resources groups and the people and performance team, the diversity and inclusion team, it won't really work, right? So the leadership team need to walk the talk, as we say. And when it comes to their teams, if we don't see that they are actually taking more women into their teams, then the message becomes way less powerful, right? So, and that's one thing that we've done, and we have now in the company, 41% of the senior management roles in the company are now women, which is a significant. We're not there yet, right? So of course we need to be at least at 50%, but it's a huge improvement to where we were a couple of years ago. Our global VP of transformation is actually a woman as well. So I think we've made some important advances there by taking more women into leadership roles and really pushing this agenda. I think the second thing we did, the O in this framework, is being objective and creating objective metrics and processes to promote and hire people. I think a lot of things that we spoke about today need to mention that in her opening remarks. Anjali spoke about that, Sahana spoke about that. I'm not gonna repeat everything they said, but I think there is something that we can do a lot as a group of, call it data scientists, right? Because we can actually help with more artificial intelligence to make more objective decisions, right, for hiring and promoting, and try to remove the conscious or unconscious bias that everybody has. Unconscious bias training, they help, right? But we humans need to have a bit more of a nudge every time we make these important decisions, right? But obviously being very careful with data protection and ethical considerations, etc., right? And the last thing, which I think was quite surprising and it might sound quite unintuitive, is what I call leveling. And it's one objective measure that we did was actually reviewing our paternity leave policy, the thought behind that. And there's a lot of research showing that this actually helps a lot, creating this more gender neutral parental leave policy actually incentivizes more men to take paternity leave, and it puts both men and women in a level playing field when it comes to the likelihood of people taking a parental leave. So when you're faced with a hiring, a promotion decision, and conscious or unconsciously you're second guessing it, and you're thinking, what if this person goes on paternity leave very soon? It can be both men and women, right? So you remove that factor, and that actually, I think, helped us somewhat, right? So we've seen some very important results in terms of closing the gender pay gap when you compare business units where we have implemented better paternity leave policies versus business units where we had worse paternity leave policies. We saw that there is a correlation that suggests some causation between these things: higher employment engagement, higher levels of promotions for women as well. So I think all these metrics have improved.
Great, thank you for that. Yeah, I know it isn't funny, but the LOL acronym is very memorable. So I appreciate the research in this space, but also the great acronym. Praveena, in your work at Dollar General, what tactics are you guys currently taking to support women into leadership roles, and how can we all support women getting into leadership roles a bit more?
Actually, Sadie, that's a good question. And all the companies, especially top Fortune 500, Fortune 100 companies, they're applying the same thing, similar to what Gustavo has mentioned. So my CIO is laser focused on diversity and inclusion. So that's the whole reason I'm here, right? So part of it is in addition to the knowledge. So there is a stage when bottoms up and top down approach should happen. So while Gustavo, my learned friend, has done like top down approach where companies are doing almost the similar things everywhere you go, because that's part of their STEM too. It's diversity and inclusion. The thought, no more than gender, it's the thought difference too, which would give difference in the bottom line. So let me come up with a bottoms up approach. Yes, I do appreciate all the companies doing top down approach. The bottoms up approach is us, the women, the diversity, the people that are being affected. We can change too. We need to change to meet the top down approach. So for that, first thing is confidence gap. Are you confident as a woman to go into a room full of men and debate with intelligence? So I think that we need to change that. We need to change that with ourselves. We are the bosses in our own house. Why? We should be the boss people in the world too. So that confidence gap, let's reduce that. And also let go of being perfect. I'm a mother of two. I want to be the perfect wife, perfect mother, and perfect worker too. Can I do all that? As a human, can we do all that? No. Let go of perfect, because the kids can survive a day without me making food. They can prepare their own food, right? So that's second thing. The third thing is mentorship and sponsorship. I only have 24 hours in a normal day. I can go look for whom should I mentor, right? So people can reach out to me and say, Praveena, I need this. I have some weakness here. Can you help me out? And that's what I do. And actually, in case, just an FYI, my mentorship circle, I have all women of different colors. So it's like I go to their shoes and try to see what they're thinking, come up, and then suggest them in particular. So it's like laser focused on that particular person. So let's do what we can do to reduce or to increase ourselves, so that the top-down approach can meet, and then we'll be successful leaders. And that happened in my life too. So that's the reason I'm telling you this. Again, this works. So companies are coming together to make a difference. Let's make a difference to ourselves. That's all I have to say. In addition to everything that the panelists have said, I'm like, every time when anybody talked about these things, I was like, there's a smile on my face, because I have gone through the same thing, or I have mentored the same thing. So thanks for every panelist. They did an amazing job. And as women, let's make a difference in the world. We are mother. We are strong. We are great, and we are equal, if not better. yes.
Yes, I was noticing a lot of faces in the audience too. We're also nodding when you were saying, particularly letting go of being perfect, right? I think it's something that all resonates with all of us. So I know we're up on time, but I do want to make sure we get to every panelist today. So hopefully it's okay if we extend just a little bit for the audience. And I'd love to bring up Nicole and Liz. So Nicole is Associate Principal of Customer Success at The Math Company, and Liz is the Principal of Human Resources. So as we wrap up today, Nicole, would you be able to just quickly highlight how women can position themselves in the work to reach leadership? And then we'll hand it over to you, Liz, to wrap this up.
Yeah, absolutely, Sadie. And I think, I'd really just echo what Praveena just said, which I think is similar to what else we've heard, but there's a big confidence piece, right? And I think it comes down to, as women, we have to believe that what we're doing is important. And if it is important, it has to be said. It has to be said widely and to the top, and so I think that's like a really important component to how we can grow, believe that, and then actually ask. And that's where the willingness to be imperfect comes into play as well, right? Like when you go up, you're going to make mistakes, but you have to go up to bat if you're, doing work that's worth talking about. And I think, there's truly like a diverse set of roles within tech that I think is maybe underappreciated when we talk about tech as kind of this like singular thing, but there's really a lot of different ways to participate within tech, and exactly what you don't see might be what's needed. So recognizing that as well, I think, can be really important. It's intimidating sometimes when you don't see that role model, but understanding that as the opportunity for yourself, using horizontal paths to find those role models other places, I think is really important there as well, to maybe get some of that validation that you need, but still step up and try to do something new.
Perfect, thank you. And Liz, could you wrap us up today and just share a little bit more about some of the initiatives that the Math Company is currently taking to drive diversity and inclusion?
Yeah, so I think one of our larger initiatives, and I've been working, very closely with Nicole on this, is our returnship program. So this is a new program we will be launching for women who are looking to get back into the workforce. So I know firsthand, my mom, she raised 5 kids and worked full time. Being a working mother is the hardest job in the world. And I think that, a lot of times, and, we've seen the stats on it, that, women are not only caring for children, but also for, parents and other relatives as well. And, people look at a career break like a negative connotation, but I think that, really the skills, and especially, women can multitask all day, every day. So I think it's hugely important, to implement a program like that. And also, we need to put the focus on, making them the best as well, upskilling these individuals, augmenting their current skills, making sure that they are getting, everything out of it. So I think in terms of, not only the returnship, but also promoting women in MathCo, as there's always a gender equity issue. We definitely have to work on not only increasing, the percentage of women overall in tech, but I think our biggest opportunity is women in leadership. So it's a personal goal, of myself, of our HR team, with our leadership, to help improve, our women in leadership roles. And I think it's hugely important that people do have mentors and, people do have role models to look up to throughout their career. And, happy to help, facilitate that and, make MathCo, a great diverse environment.
Thank you. Yes, I'm so excited about the returnship program. I know we see this so much in the women in data community of how do I get back into the workforce after taking this break. So really appreciate what the Math Company is doing there. And I just want to say a big thank you to all of our panelists. I think this was the biggest roundtable discussion I've ever hosted. So thank you so much for bringing your insights, bringing your encouragement. It was a wonderful conversation and such a great way to kick off International Women's Day. So without further ado, I will hand it back over to Yashawi to wrap us up today.
Thank you, everyone. That was a very remarkable conversation. I thank Sadie for being such a amazing moderator for today and the speakers for sharing some amazing insights. So I guess it's time for us to go to the snapshot. So this is on the theme of 2023's International Women's Day, where we are promoting #EmbraceEquity. So I request all of you to come on video and just cross your arms towards the shoulders and pose for a couple of seconds so that our team can take a snapshot of it. Yeah. Did we get it?
Yep. We can. Yeah, that.
Thank you. So in the last segment of Conversations for Change, I would like to welcome Maria Hutcheson. She's our Head of Region for Strategic Accounts. She strategizes and builds key accounts for the Math Company. Maria holds her expertise in understanding customer problems and driving insights to bring effective business outcomes for clients. Hi, Maria.
Hello, and I wanted to thank everyone for just that remarkable discussion. And just really quickly, if I were to summarize some of the key takeaways, which really resonated, certainly with me personally, just some of the collective learnings as far as the importance of having a strong network, the importance of representation and sponsorship opportunities, the challenge to allow, or I think the challenge to all of us to own our self-development and learn from one another. I love some of the takeaways from Praveena in particular, this letting go of perfectionism and being easy on ourselves, and knowing that we have to do this in community. So, even linking this back to Telina's initial comments around the importance of community in driving the balance that we need to succeed in our careers. And if I could just sort of leave everybody with a call to action, it would be to watch the space, watch the conversations that continue to develop as a result of women in data and our community here at the MathCo. And yeah, just back to you.
Thank you so much, Maria. Thank you, everyone. A big thank you to all the speakers joining us today. Thanks, Sadie, for being amazing, and all of the speakers. It's been really inspiring personally for me to hear this conversation. Thank you again, and a huge shout out to the AI Xecutive team as well for putting this together. And wishing you all a very happy International Women's Day. Stay tuned, and we will be sharing more details about the call. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.